Hey everyone, it's Steve at Kettle Haven Ranch. Thanks for joining me again. Today we are going to start episode 2 of our introduction to beekeeping. It is mid-February and right around the corner we're going to be receiving bees. We have to have everything set up for them. When they do arrive, we'll have to install them into the hives, and we want to have everything ready in advance. So, starting out today, we're going to be looking at some of the equipment you need to provide a home for your bees. Stick with me, it's coming up next. Hey, welcome back. Let's put in a real quick plug. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can receive notification of future videos. This series is being made on the fly, and we'll be doing it on a weekly installment until we get the bees in and get them installed, and then we'll be checking up on them every couple weeks until we harvest the honey. So this is going to be a year-long project. Please subscribe. In this second video, I'm going to be showing you guys a lot of equipment that you need to have, starting with the hives and the individual components of the hive. That's going to make it a little choppy. I'll try to edit as best as I can. Please forgive me. But to get through all the information and not have a big stack of stuff right in front of the camera, I'll do it piece by piece. We'll start at the bottom. The first thing we're going to talk about is the stand that you put your bees on. Wherever you put your apiary, an apiary is an area where you're going to keep your bees. It's dedicated to them. You're going to have some sort of a base, and I'll put in some pictures here somewhere. We'll try to put them right in here, showing how we set it up here at Kettle Haven Ranch. We have skunks in the area. Skunks eat bees, and the last thing you want is to have an all-night feast of skunks sitting in the front of your hive, pissing the bees off, getting them to come out and try to defend themselves, and the skunks just eat them one by one. They'll empty it out. So our hives are raised off the ground, as you can see in the photo. I put them up on cinder blocks, and then with some treated posts going across, and the hives sit on top of that, as shown in the picture here. This is the very bottom of the beehive. These are for the integrated pest management base. It has a landing board. The landing board is at the angle it's at. When the bees are heavily laden with pollen and they come and land, they actually are a little heavy in the rear. And being heavy in the rear, they land at an angle. This is to give them a chance to land. Is it that important? I don't know. I've seen the bees land right on the entrance to the hive, and I've seen them land at the angle here and crawl up. Top of the landing board is the second half of our integrated pest management base. From here, we're going to stack our hive bodies on top of it. But as you can see, just in front here, the angle here is to facilitate the bees landing at an angle and then crawling up and entering the hive. Some will crawl right in, land right on the flats, and crawl in also. In the center of the base, we have an opening that is covered with hardware cloth. The bees can't get through this. It allows a couple different things. It allows ventilation to come up and through into the hive in the summertime. It also allows for any Varroa mites or other pests that might be on the bees that get knocked off by the bees to fall through and fall out of the hive away from the bees onto the board below, which we can spray with a tacky glue. Any mites that fall all the way through get caught on here, and by periodically inspecting the board, we can see if we have mite population building up within the hive that we have to take care of. That's sort of nice. Also, in the heat of the summer, when the hives are out in the broiling sun, I like to have this wide open for the bees. It really helps. I know, so with my hives, I don't have the big boil of bees on the front, the cluster that's trying to cool down the hive as much. Very rare that I see that, because this provides the ventilation they need. And they're still protected from any other attacks by hornets or wasps or anything else. So that is the base. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put on a hive body. Take me a second here to get it out. Ready? Here we go. Well, it's obvious in this video the set's going to be changing quite a bit as I add on. This green box here is a hive body. It's a deep, and it has a lot of different words, different names for it. Different people, they call them a super, they call them a brood box, a brood chamber. It all depends on what it is used for. This one would be a brood box, as I would call it. It's a deep. This is where I'm going to install both packages of bees would be installed in here, or your nuke. With the nuke, you'd probably have 4 or 5 frames that come out of the nuke box. In fact, I have a nuke box here. I'll show you guys how that's set up here in a second once we get through this part. But this is a 10 frame, and I'll tell you right now, I am going to switch over to an 8 frame. As you get older, these things are heavy, and this particular box has 8 frames that still have honey in it from a predated hive. Yeah, let's see if I can get anything apart without a tool. Okay, these are already has drawn out frames, and I do have honey in here. The reason why I didn't take some of this honey out and I left it in is because I'm getting some packages. I'm getting 4 packages of bees this spring, and they're going to come without any drawn frames at all. What's a drawn frame? Here's a deep frame that hasn't been drawn. There's no honeycomb yet. This is probably the biggest challenge of your new hive, is getting enough drawn comb on top of the foundation that they can go ahead and start reproducing, and more importantly for us, not for them, for us, store that honey and fill those combs up. This is the exact same frame here that has been drawn out and filled with honey is this one right out of the box. Well, it went through a season, but it was on the end. They rarely get to the very end frames, so that was not drawn out. That takes the most amount of time for your hive, and that is the major benefit of having a nucleus by nucleus colonies from a local beekeeper. You're getting it with honey, with brood, all stages, an accepted queen, and about 3 to 5 pounds of bees, all ready to rock and roll. All you do is put them in here, close it up, and they're already going. They're already reproducing, and they're going to start foraging right off the bat, maybe the next day or so. So here in Northeast Washington, because of our climate, it is best to winter your bees with a minimum of 2 of these chambers, 2 deeps, and maybe even a shallow on top of that, in which you don't harvest anything out of. You let the bees collect it so they have it to get through our harsh winters. Very important that you do not take everything from your bees. You just take what they don't need to get through the next winter. Otherwise, you'll be replacing bees every year. So this is the very minimum you're going to need to get started. Right here is 1 brood and your base. So it won't fit in the camera the way I have it set up. So we're just going to move to the next piece. Remember, for Northeast Washington, a cold climate, you really need to have a minimum of 2 of these deeps for your hive to develop to have any chance of getting through the next year. From there, you would have, in the UK they call this a crown board, I believe. We call it the inner cover. Here in the US, some people call it the inner cover. Inner cover goes on. Bee space, that's another good point that maybe I missed. I know I missed. You need to have a certain amount of space the bees are happy living in and crawling through without them trying to plug the hole. And I'll show you some stuff here. This brown, I believe you can see that. This stuff is called propolis. And the propolis is made out of, well, all sorts of stuff, but they get it from resin from trees mostly and combine it with different enzymes to make an actual glue-ish type material. And they'll glue up any space that they have airflow coming through, or if it's too big for them to feel comfortable with. So you can see here, there's some on the top bars, the top of the top bar, and then there's some comb being drawn out. That's where I had too much space between the top of the top bar of each frame and the actual top of the hive. So our inner cover goes like that to clear that space and keep them from building there. Otherwise they'll lock up your hive so tight you really can't get it open. It becomes quite a challenge to do that. You're going to need a top for your hive that is weatherproof, that'll protect your bees. A bunch of different ways to do it. Believe it or not, I use old metal roofing. We call it tin or sheet metal roof, a steel roof, metal roof. And I use this. It works great. I never have a problem with the tops of my hives rotting. It has some overhang to keep rain and snow away from the very close edges on the hive. The downside of this is when you're trying to move your hives or stack your hives, because of the overhang, it's very hard to get them in tight into the back of a truck or onto a pallet. So that is a drawback. That's what I use. Right there, there's your very starting beehive. Of course, that's just the very start. Installing new packages, installing nukes, this is the way I would do it. You don't want to give the bees too much space to begin with. You want them to really like what they have and feel comfortable in it, feel cozy, like they can control it, and they will build into it. You're going to be checking your bees every week or 2 weeks, and as they grow, you're going to have to add another deep super on top of this. And then from there, once you get in a really well-established hive, if you have a good honey producing area, you can go ahead and put on the medium supers. We'll look at those here in a second. The medium super is a great one to use for actually harvesting honey. When they're full and ready to go, they don't weigh as much. They're easy to handle. Okay, so the medium super is the way you want to harvest your honey. Leave the deeps for the bees. Had to do a set change there to get everything to fit in. To show a difference, here's your deep, and I will be putting the numbers up here for the actual sizes of the different frames and the size of the supers. Also have a link down below in the description going to a couple different websites that have everything all lined up. You can find your information you need for any sizes, specific dimensions. Here's an example though of the two. This is a medium super, or a honey super as some people call it. This is from a deep super or from a brood box. You can see the difference in size. These are about half the area and are very manageable when they're full of honey. Honey weighs a lot. This box right here, the deep full weighs about 80 pounds to 100 pounds. Not much there to hang on to when you have to move them around. It's a pain in the butt. The mediums top out at about 45 to 50 pounds, sometimes 60 pounds if you're lucky. And that makes that a very nice size for harvesting your honey. and very controllable and easy to work with. Now, probably one of the biggest things that people talk about, if you're looking at a 10 frame box, that's 10 of these mediums or 10 of the deep frames per box that you're going to have to make, produce, buy, etc. Think about that. If you're talking about for like northeastern Washington with the deep supers, doing this system, if you're doing a 10 frame for your bees to get through the winter time, you're looking at least 20 of the frames for that box, for those 2 boxes, and possibly even another 10 of the mediums to really make it secure so they have enough food for the winter. And then every single medium that you have after that's going to need 10 more frames. It adds up quick, and something to consider when you're looking at getting established. Having all these frames drawn out, like you can see there, we got a little bit of honey there, a little bit drawn out, but they didn't even draw out the sides. Let's see what else I got here. See on this one, they just started drawing that out. Okay, this particular hive got raided by wasps, so we're going to be working hard to kill the wasps and hornets this next year, get them out of the equation. You see this one still has honey in it. I'm going to use this to feed this year's bees because I believe that is probably better and works better than just the sugar water syrup, which we'll be using also to supplement it. But if they have honey to use, why not give them the real thing? And I promised to show you guys a nuke box. This is typically what you're going to see. It's just a heavy cardboard box that is waxed. It has some plugs in it, some ventilation. It'll probably be taped up. When you open it up, it has just simple cardboard frame rests for your frames. It will have 4 to 5, maybe 6 if you're lucky, fully developed frames in all different stages of bees being reared, and you should have some pollen and maybe some honey in there also, some feed. So that box will be brimmed, filled with bees and a queen. Now, where I get my nukes, they have the queens already introduced, so they've already been accepted by the brood, and everything's going great. It's just like a beehive. You're taking a beehive home. Nucleus, the basic minimum to keep a beehive going and alive as they grow and expand. They will quadruple in size before they even start putting any honey down as the year progresses, as we get into the honey flow. That's how we're going to pick them up, and of course I'll do a video on that, going and getting the bees and bringing them home and installing them. That's down the road. Our next video in this series, we're going to talk about some of the tools you need to think about. We're going to look at feeders, because you have to have feeders ready. You have to have feed ready for your bees when you bring them home and introduce them. Some of the important things to think about when establishing your hive is just not a box with bees flying in and out and grabbing the honey at the end of the year. A lot of work goes into it, and we'll continue on with number 3 coming up next week. Hope you stay tuned, and once again, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and also the like button. Sure appreciate it. Check out other stuff too at kettlehavenranch.com. We now have Teespring for t-shirts, sweatshirts, grocery bags, stuff like that. All right, thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the future.